Hope everyone's doing well. Good morning. All right. So enter the bye week at 6-6. Obviously that doesn't reflect, the aspirations that we had at this point in the season. That being said, I think the bye comes at a really good time for us. I know Kevin, the offensive staff, defensive staff, special teams group, they're all hard at work, really reviewing everything from the season, whether that's scheme, personnel usage, in a manner that would allow us to make any necessary adjustments that allows us to play our best football over the final 5 weeks of the regular season. So that all being said, taking a step back, really a little bit from a big picture perspective, I think the next 5 games, they really provide us with a really valuable opportunity. And I think oftentimes people talk about adversity or challenges really when it's convenient. But the reality is it's really important to us, like as a team and an organization, because number one, you learn a lot about people, whether it's on the field, publicly, privately, but also adversity is universally important for growth. And I think that that's something that we need as a team, we need as an organization. And I think the next 5 games provide us with a valuable opportunity to grow and work through, what will be a very difficult stretch. The reality of it is, entering the season and entering December, you hope for the opportunity to play meaningful football, late in the year. And that's something that's still right in front of us. We're going to play 5 teams that I think are playoff caliber, 4 in the AFC, 3 in our division. And I'm excited about that opportunity. I'm excited to learn about, how our team deals with adversity, the resolve. And that's something that we're looking forward to seeing, how our group responds out of the bye. So with that, I'll open up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, AB. The first one will be from Tom Withers.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate the time. You guys have literally been 6 of one, half dozen of the other. What would you attribute this inconsistency to?
Tom, I think it's, quite honestly, I don't think there's necessarily any one reason. Obviously, at times during the season, the different phases of our team have kind of been on or off, throughout the first 12 weeks. And I know that's something that obviously we're hard at work, analyzing for, with our coaching staff, so we can ultimately play our best ball in December. I think just quite honestly, different stretches in the season have had different, different challenges or different issues. So I don't think there's necessarily like just a one size fits all answer to that.
I totally agree. I appreciate that. As far as Baker is concerned, Andrew, how tough has it been to kind of assess how he's doing and his development this year when he's battling these injuries?
Yeah, I think we all know that Baker is incredibly physically tough. I think he's told you guys, at moments of the year where he's been frustrated with this, with his own performance. That being said, he has had stretches, this year where he has played well for us. And look, the reality is like he's worked through injuries no different than other players on our roster. But I know he expects of himself, and we expect him whenever he's on the field to perform at a capable level, at a winning level, and we expect him to play his best football down the stretch here after the bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Fred Greetham is next.
Hi, Andrew. With the continuity in offense, you brought back same coaches, same players, almost everything the same. How do you explain that the offense is regressing or not playing to what the expectation level was?
Realistically, Fred, I think you're right. We brought back, a lot of the same guys this year. But I really do mean it when I say like every year is unique, just because, you won a lot of games last year, or just because you bring back, a similar group, it doesn't entitle you to necessarily the same, performance level or the same, production level moving forward. I think quite honestly, with the offense, it's really, we just haven't been consistent enough in the passing game. And I want to be clear here, that's not necessarily a one player or one person problem. Like the passing game, it's all about coordination. Realistically, it starts from play call from the sideline that hopefully has the right solutions for whatever the defensive strategy is. Then it goes to the protection for your offensive line, your running backs, your tight ends at times. It goes to your receivers, being in the right place at the right time, winning their matchups. And then it goes to your quarterback, getting the ball to the right location at the right time, accurately. And I think, just quite frankly, there have been different, pieces within the passing offense that maybe have functioned at a very efficient and high level at times during the season, and other pieces just haven't necessarily been there. And I think that it hasn't been any one of those components, but it's something that obviously we're hard at work to make sure that everything can be on the same page and coordinated as we enter the stretch run here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Fred. Scott Petrick, you're up.
Hey, Andrew. Obviously, there's been a lot of penalties all year long, and then there's the substitution issues on Sunday night, all things that Kevin takes responsibility for. So how do you think he's handled year 2 on the job?
Yeah, I think Kevin, he has all the virtues and characteristics that are important for the leader of our organization. I think it starts with his self-awareness and accountability. It goes to his level of introspection in terms of the team, the job that our group is doing, and it also goes to just his open-mindedness and ability to adjust. I think he's been very transparent with you guys in terms of the areas where he's felt like our team can perform at a higher level. And again, I talk about adversity. I think Kevin's level of accountability is exactly what you want in tough stretches, and I think our guys take their cue from him.
What about from a play calling perspective? Have you seen any big changes from last year to this year, either with how he calls it or how defenses are playing you guys?
Honestly, I think that's a better question for him, our expert. It's in terms of scheme. That's not my area of expertise. But I have a ton of confidence in him as a play caller.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Mary Kay Cabot, go ahead.
Yes, Andrew, do you still feel like you always have felt that that Baker Mayfield is unequivocally your quarterback of the future, the player that you believe can take you to the Super Bowl and win Super Bowls?
Yeah, I think with Baker, especially from a long-term perspective, you really try and take a big picture approach. It really, with any player, it's about body of work over really over several years, and also taking into context the environment or a particular individual situation. We've seen Baker play a lot of good football here. We've seen Baker play good football, this season. I know he's excited, and we're excited for the opportunity ahead of us, and we expect him to play his best football moving forward over the next 5 weeks.
What does he have to show you in these next 5 weeks to really solidify, how you feel about him and where everybody goes from here?
Yeah, Mary Kay, I don't know it's so much about, showing me anything. Like, really, our focus is on, winning games and playing at a high enough level that, allows us to, be in a strong spot in December. That's really where the focus is. I think Baker showed a lot over the past, 4 or I guess kind of 3+ seasons. So I don't necessarily subscribe to this notion that there's some, something in these next 5 games that's of particular focus, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kay. Jake Trotter has our next question.
Yeah, Andrew, with 11 starters back offensively, the entire staff back, the scheme, how unexpected has the regression offensively been to you? And then what data do you have that makes you think, as you said earlier, that it's going to be better after the bye here?
Yeah, I think we all think the offense can play at a higher level. I think, like I mentioned, Jake, I think the biggest thing is really just the consistency in the passing game, which is a number of things. And again, I know our staff is hard at work, finding the right solutions that will allow us to play at the highest level, going into the last 5 weeks of the season. But again, every year is unique. You're not entitled to, top level performance just because we return the same guys. You really do have to work at it every year, and on a week-to-week basis. And this upcoming bye week, or this current bye week, I should say, will play a big role in that in terms of getting us back on track where we need to be.
You said you think Baker's going to play his best football after the bye. Is that in part because you think he's just going to be healthier than he's been?
Yeah, look, I think certainly that's part of it. Like I think he's told you guys he's felt healthier, week to week, but at the same time, I expect, and I'm looking forward to seeing our guys work through this tough stretch. And that's not just Baker, that's our entire team. At the end of the day, we want to be playing our best football in December, and that's really our mission. That's our charge.
Thank you, Jake. Daryl Ryder, go ahead.
Yeah, Andrew, obviously Baker's been limited by these injuries, but also the offense seems to be suffering a little bit from it as well. My question is, considering the results being what they are, when you look back on that situation, why was it so important for Baker to keep playing through these injuries, and just ultimately, why not give him a couple of weeks to allow his body to calm down so that he was healthy for this stretch run against these opponents that are all in playoff contention with you?
Yeah, Daryl, I think it's a couple of things. So I probably should be clear here for any player, in terms of whether they're on the field or not. It's really see three separate things. Number one, are they medically cleared from the perspective that they can't do anything harmful to their health, or significantly harmful to the health. Number two, are they medically cleared in a manner that would allow them to function in their role on the field, or play at a winning level of their role in the field? And then number three, does the player, both by feel and then obviously and honestly by evidence, throughout the practice week, can he perform all the requirements of his role on game day? And so we'll never put a player on the field that doesn't pass those three criteria. Whether it's our quarterback or an offensive lineman, or a member of the secondary, or a punter or a kicker. And that holds through for Baker. So our expectation is when guys are on the field, and our players' expectations of themselves when they're on the field, if they're there, they're going to perform at a high level. The second piece of that, Daryl, is the reality is we're in December in the NFL. Nobody's 100%, whether it's doesn't matter what position that you play, but everybody who is there is not only just healthy enough to be out there or healthy enough to play, but healthy enough to play it, at a winning level. And so that's our expectation of guys when they're on the field.
And I have a question about the Odell situation, just more generally speaking. I realize you can't force players to want to be here. Fans, though, they'll look at the offense, the struggles, the inability to score, the lack of explosiveness, especially at the receiver position. They see Odell scoring, 50-yard touchdowns with the Rams, and wonder why that didn't work. So my question to you is, what did you learn just in general as the chief football executive about that situation? And how do you maybe prevent something like that from occurring again, where you have to make that type of a difficult decision in the middle of the year to let a player go?
Yeah, it's a good question, Daryl. I think, quite honestly, obviously addressed Odell a number of weeks ago. I will say more generally, each of those situations are, unique. And, I think, the Odell situation is probably, singularly unique in probably the past couple of years, again, without, going into the details. Obviously you never like to see a divorce of, so to speak, of that nature. And, try your best as an organization to prevent that type of thing from occurring. But, it does happen. It does happen in the NFL. It's unfortunate, but, it's something that we're moving forward from. And, our concern is really the games the next 5 weeks.
Thank you, Daryl. Dan Lobby, go ahead.
Hey, Andrew. You've mentioned a number of times that every year is different. So I'm just wondering, when it comes to an individual player like Baker and the team as a whole, how do you balance kind of evaluating what's happening this season specifically, or right now specifically, without overreacting, and kind of keeping that big picture view? I guess, how do you balance those two competing things?
No, it's a good question, Dan. I'll be honest. It's probably more art than science. I wish it was as easy. I could give you, it's kind of straightforward answer in terms of, hey, it's, this is how you weight it and this is how you do it. But it is a little bit more. It is a little bit more feel. It is a little bit about looking at things, without emotion, and ultimately trying to be trying to be fair to your team and your organization. So I wish I had, a more formulaic response for you, but it really is a little bit more art than science.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, Dan. Cam Justice, you're up.
Andrew, you talked about it earlier, but throughout the season, there's been some times where the offense isn't going and the defense is, and maybe the defense is going and the offense is, and not having that consistency. And one of the things we're hearing after the games is about the communication has to be better, talking about it has to be better to get that plan into action to correct these mistakes. I wonder, while you've got 5 games left, you're 12 games into the season, has that communication ramped up or evolved in ways that you've seen that actually take, some kind of action?
No, that's an excellent question, Cam. And I think it's totally fair. So first, the answer to your question is yes. I have seen progress in that area. Secondly, I think again the bye week gives everybody time to have like a little bit of a breather, slow down, and really kind of work on some of those challenges, even more aggressively. No, but I think that's something that our staff has and will continue to do a really nice job with. And look, do expect that to be clean as we come out of the bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. Tony Grossi, go ahead.
Hey, Andrew, I want to go back to the Baker question. Since he injured the shoulder the second game, which was Arizona game, the team has scored 7 points in 7 games in the fourth quarter. And 2 of those games happened to be, 16-10 to Baltimore, 15-10 to Pittsburgh. Otherwise, you're in the driver's seat of this thing. I understand, clearing a guy is he good enough to play, but you said play at a ability to win. So the assessment that Baker was good enough to win with, has that not changed at all over these 7 games?
Just so I'm clear, in what regard, Tony?
Clearing him to play is one thing, but is he able to win these important games? And has there been any discussion that you make a quarterback change just to win a game?
I see. No, Baker's our quarterback. He's healthy enough to win games for us. He has won games for us in the past couple of weeks. But yeah, no, if he's ready to go, he's going to be our starter.
Okay, and then another follow-up then on OBJ. You did some things after to assure his release or to help it, both sides effect his exit. Why couldn't you do that in advance of the trade deadline to make him more tradable?
Yeah, appreciate the question. Tony, I think, number one, I don't talk about contract situations. And number two, again, we're addressed Odell at the time. We're past that at this point.
Thank you, Tony. Nate Ulrich, go ahead.
Hey, Andrew. Before the season, you said you were looking forward to Baker having another fantastic season. Obviously, there's a lot of reason to believe that. With the way things have gone for him, do you need to see him next year? Do you need him to play next season to decide his future with the team?
Yeah, Nate, I think it probably goes back to a little bit what I mentioned earlier, that you really do try and take a wider lens, so to speak. But really, again, like our focus is on playing our best football in December and positioning ourselves to really play in the postseason this year because we have a ton of meaningful games, and that really significantly outsizes any individual player decision across the roster that we're gonna make. There will be plenty of time to think through how we're going to build the roster into next year. But at the end of the day, everybody's focus and energy, within the organization is making sure that, we do everything in our power to maximize the current season.
And I understand what you're saying about body of work, but this is the first time he's had continuity, with the coaching staff, with the play. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about how, you and Kevin anticipated he would benefit from that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on that question. Do you need to see him more with Kevin in the system, with the things have gone You know, and injuries, I mean, you know,
I understand where I got you. Look, I don't think that's necessarily the case, Nate. But again, really the focus in making sure that both Baker and our team, really play as well as possible the next 5 games so that we can be in a good position at the end of the month.
okay, and I know you've addressed injuries, so I'm going to ask another aspect of Baker and his season. Do you think that playing for a contract extension has impacted him negatively, whether, it's pressing, the pressure, stress, mental factor?
That's not something that I can answer for him, Nate. I think he's, mentioned probably multiple times throughout the year that really his focus is on football, and winning games. I think, there are a lot of players across the league that, are in similar boats, whether they're free agents or extension eligible. It comes with the territory in terms of being a professional athlete. But I do know this, Baker is both physically and mentally resilient, and he's hyper-focused. And at the end of the day, he's hyper-focused on winning and, controlling his play, the offensive play moving forward. So, that's not something that's, I doubt that's something that's really top of mind with him. That's why, players have higher representation to take care of the business affairs for them. And I think really all our focus is in terms of winning games down the stretch here.
Thank you, Nate. Ashley Bastick has our next question.
Hey, Andrew, given everything that's gone on with the receivers this year, I wanted to ask about DPJ and kind of his development. I know Kevin has called him Mr. Dependable and really just seems to have a knack for making some of these big plays when you guys need them most. I guess, is this kind of what you envisioned for him or were hoping when you guys got him in the 6th round almost 2 years ago? And where do you kind of see the next steps in his development with this organization?
Yeah, I'll be honest with Donovan. He's probably come along more quickly than I would have anticipated when we drafted him, and that's a credit to him. I think in terms of his next steps, obviously he has really great opportunity in front of him. I think part of it is he's probably been a little bit stop and start this year, with a little bit on the injury side of things. But he's obviously has and will continue to kind of play a major role in the passing game for us this year. So it's an incredible opportunity for him to continue to make plays and ultimately help us win games.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Zach Jackson, you're next.
Hi, Andrew. I wanted to ask you, how you evaluate Jadeveon Clowney's season and if you see him as a potential fit beyond this year.
Yeah, it's a good question, Zach. I think JD's done a really nice job for us. Run and pass game, he's been very disruptive. And he's had a handful of games where, really he and Miles have really taken it over for us on the defensive side of the ball. So I've been very pleased with the results that we've seen from him on the field. Again, in terms of the long-term stuff, contractual stuff, we'll have plenty of time for that. But I think he's had a really nice season for us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Zach. Terry Pluto, you're next.
Andrew, do you think your team leads the league in pre-snap penalties and that kind of stuff? And that was not a problem last year. In fact, if anything, maybe my novice view would have been that would have been more of a first-year problem than a second-year problem. So what about it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Terry. I know that's something that Kevin has talked about, that he is disappointed and frustrated in. It's something that he's really made several adjustments over the past couple of weeks, and I know, or I would imagine, that there will be continued adjustments there. It's not something that we've been accustomed to typically, at least relative to last year. And I think we all know how disciplined and organized that Kevin is, but it's obviously something that we have to minimize and get fixed moving forward.
One of the thoughts I had, and sometimes I've seen there, is that sometimes if a head coach is so preoccupied with his one side of the ball or whatever, and these things crop up, would taking away some of that level on the offense help them just do the total operation any better?
No, I don't think it's a function of that, Terry. I mean, I think we've seen enough evidence over time that Kevin can manage everything on his plate. I think it really starts with accountability for every man that's on the team. But look, I have a ton of confidence that that's something that will get fixed moving forward.
Thank you, Terry. We'll take two more, Scott Petrick and Doug Maurice. Scott?
Hey, Andrew, when we talk about the inconsistency of the season, do you think there's any factor in a sense of entitlement or we've arrived after the playoff trip a year ago?
I don't get that sense, Scott. Again, I guess that's probably a good individual question for everyone. But no, I don't get that sense because the reality of it is, we have had a fair amount of roster turnover. Again, every year is different and unique. I know I've said that a couple different times, but no, I don't get a sense that there's level of time and we arrived, because quite honestly, we haven't gotten there yet. Like, we haven't had the sustained success as some of the great teams and organizations in our sport. So I think everybody's hyper aware of that you really do have to work at it on a yearly basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Final question to Doug Maurice.
Doug, can't quite hear you.
Doug, you're on mute if you want to check your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's better, Doug.
Sorry about that, Andrew.
No worries.
You guys used 13 personnel 14% of the time last year, which was the most in the league. This year, I think you're at 21%, which is double any other team in the league. Whether you want to answer this specifically or generally or both, what is the balance between looking for an edge and doing things differently than other teams in the pursuit of finding success versus maybe getting too far outside the norm where maybe you're not doing things the way other teams have success? I think you maybe know what I'm saying there.
Yeah, no.
The balance.
No, it's a good and fair question, Doug. And I think that's part of what this week from a coaching staff perspective is all about. I do know that from Kevin's perspective that has been one of our better personnel groups over the past 2 years, because we do have a good tight end room, and guys that can create mismatches when teams will typically play you in base in that personnel grouping. But you're right, it is a balance of all of the personnel groupings at your disposal. And I think one of the things that at least I feel like I've seen over the past 2 years is this coaching staff has done a really nice job with schematic adjustments at the pivotal points in the season, whether it's the bye week, the off season, things of those natures, to be honest and self-reflective in terms of what's worked well and what hasn't worked quite as efficiently. So this will be a big week in terms of addressing all of those type of questions, and certainly looking forward to what Kevin and his staff kind of have in mind as we get into December.
And then specifically, you mentioned all the different facets of the passing game, but looking specifically at the wide receivers, with the changes you've had, with the injuries you've had to almost everybody in that room, what have you thought of the usage of the wide receivers this year and the performance of the wide receivers?
Yeah, I think it's probably safe, like all of our position groups, it's been we've been inconsistent. We've had games where we've played well, and we have games where we haven't played quite as well. And that goal of consistency is really kind of the biggest thing leading into the end of the year. I am looking forward to hopefully having that group being at full health, or at least close to full health after the bye, and I think that'll certainly help. But look, big opportunity in front of us, and those guys are going to have to play or continue to play major roles. And look, we are still searching for consistency in all areas, and that's ultimately what we have to find to reach our goals.